Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here's your host, Tip-Top Tim Fitch.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Construction Big Breakfast in lockdown. I think this is number 4 we've done. So welcome, everyone. Hope you're coping with working from home. I know with us it's been a very interesting experience to get through. Some positives and some negatives. I'm sure everyone's the same. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in the podcast. But this week, joining me are our latest guest, Phil Collard, and Phil will introduce himself in just a minute. And then we've got 2 of my colleagues. We've got Ben Pritchard, who I'm sure you've seen before, and Sarah Hall. Again, she was on one of the lockdown podcasts a week or 2 ago. Just for those who aren't so familiar, Sarah's our sort of communications lead and is usually the director of these podcasts and the editor. And whilst we're in lockdown, she's coming on the calls as well, and I'm sure will contribute as and when. Just a quick note, you'll see I'm wearing my gym gear. So although we're recording this at lunchtime, I have each morning during lockdown, I'm doing Joe Wicks live calisthenics with my wife and my son. My daughter refuses to do it. But anyway, that's quite a good way of getting the brain cells working in the morning, and I'm afraid I haven't changed since. So,
I mean, it is lunchtime, Tim. You've had plenty of time. I've managed to shower and change since doing Joe Wicks this morning. So,
well, you see, I'm so fit that I do not perspire during the Joe Wicks, but I'm still wearing my shorts. I don't know whether you can see that. And I've got my latest trainers, which are branded Invennt colours. They arrived this morning. Now, I was just talking to Sarah before we started. I call them Adidas. And what do you call them, Sarah?
Adidas. For everybody who
Okay.
can't.
I say tomato. Sarah says
tomato.
That's it, right. Anyway, there's a song about that.
We could go on a bit of a tangent about people who don't sweat, but I think that might be inappropriate for a construction podcast.
Okay. So the first question always to my guests, well, welcome, Phil. We'll hear all about what you're up to later. But what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I have the same breakfast every day of my life, apart from Sunday. So today it's porridge, blueberries, frozen blueberries, and I have a sort of mix, a nut mix, which I sort of make up.
Okay, well that sounds very healthy. Very healthy.
Try to be.
Yeah. Come on, Sarah, what did you have this morning?
This morning I had a huge cup of coffee, followed by a second cup of coffee, and then I made a smoothie with raspberries and protein powder and greens. Very healthy / healthy.
So that's sort of, is that the one that comes out green?
Yes, it's green. Yeah, the one that I said looks like slush. Sludge.
It's an interesting colour.
Yeah. And Ben?
Yeah, similar to Philip, I went the porridge route. So yeah, porridge every morning, and I had bananas and grapes in mine.
Oh well, very good, you lot. And I had, well, my son made it this morning. That's Sam. He did a toasted muffin with an egg in it. So you sort of cut out a circle to dip, and then he puts the muffin in the frying pan and the egg in it, and it's tremendous. I had 2 of those with a dob of ketchup. Lovely. Anyway, now let's get on with the podcast general after we've had that rather long introduction. Phil's a friend of Invent's, and we've been knocking around together for a couple of years. He's got some very interesting ideas about productivity and what have you. And today, I'm really just going to hand over the bulk of the podcast to Ben, Ben and Phil are going to have a sort of a discussion around productivity. I think mostly at the front end of the business cycle, but I'm all ears and looking forward to it. And I'll do a bit of moderation if people start going off too much of a tangent, keep us to time. But over to Ben.
Well, it's probably worth, we haven't really given you an opportunity further to introduce yourself other than your breakfast habits. So do you want to give the audience a quick intro into who you are and what you're about?
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I'm Philip Collard. I'm a former management consultant that's become what I now can see as a digital workplace pioneer. So I've gone through a sort of metamorphosis from over the last sort of 25 years. I'm 25 years, 30 years of in the industry, and really I'm very interested in seeing the changes that are happening and how to help improve those changes. That's really been my main focus over the last 25 years. But now I've been evangelically about digitalisation, and I've been leading the development of a startup called MyConsole to take this great opportunity, this great digital workplace tools to a wider marketplace within the construction industry.
And one of the main reasons why you first came up with the idea and the principles of MyConsole was very focused around improving productivity for the industry in many ways, wasn't it? It's all about how you can trim the fat in a lot of what we do in that pre-construction, which is often found in duplication of work. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think we're on a transitional journey, and the industry is at a sort of inflection point of change, and really I think most of the comments and commentary around this should be about trying to inform people's thinking. And what I've learned over the last sort of 6 years of being involved in digitalisation is that we need to start thinking about the ways that we do things. Are they as productive or as efficient as or could they be improved? And we've all learned that everything we do does improve using technology. So that's really the starting point. My background as a sort of management consultant was to help firms undertake what I now call my analog change programs, which was to traditionally do analytics on an organization, identify their strengths and weaknesses, and then roll out improvement programs and secure cultural, business or group-wide, corporate-wide involvement and adoption. Now, and it's the same thing that we're doing now, but it's more in a digital space. It's using the digital environment, the digital workplace, to leverage that change and to help people culturally adopt, improve ways and mechanisms and approaches to their work. But it starts really, we started in the space of work winning and pre-construction, primarily because it's an area that I think it hasn't been focused on too much in the past. There's a huge amount of spend. I did some research with my previous company in this space with Reading University, Professor Will Hughes, I'm sure you know. And we were finding that the average cost of a bid is around about £50,000, with something like being spent, about 483 hours were spent on winning and 382 hours spent on losing. Now, that was a typical cost of a bid, and you sort of analyse that in terms of money, it's a huge sum. When you times that with the percentage of sort of win rate people are spending on average from this research that we did, we got £8 billion worth of data in 2014 and analysed it in 2015. The average win rates of 1 in 5, and this is quite scary, because if we have a win rate of 1 in 5 and our average bid cost is £50,000, we're spending nearly £3 million to win our turnover if we're a £100 million business. So it's a large cost, and really what we're trying to do is to suggest how can we be more efficient, and that was the driving.
I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to stop at that thought and then go back, because Tim's just gotten booted out.
I'm back. Sorry, I suspect that was my.
It's all right. We can.
I can edit it, but if you can go back to be.
Shall I go back? So okay, I'll go back.
I can edit that back in. Yeah.
Okay. So we did some research with Reading University, Professor Will Hughes, And during that was research we undertook in 2014, which was the start of my journey to really understand how we can secure significant productivity improvement. And we very fortunate, together with Construction Excellence, we secured something like £8 billion worth of data. And some of the remarkable things that came out from that was the average win rate for a contractor was 1 in 4, for a consultant average win rate for a contractor is 1 in 5, for a consultant 1 in 4. The average bid cost across the piece is about £50,000. Now I know smaller organisations will be spending a lot less, but the average for large and small. And then the average, when you sort of analyse this, you work out things like bid costs as a percentage of project value, and that came out to be 0.57%. So to put some sort of meat on the bones in that, if you're a £100 million turnover contractor, and you have a 1 in 1 win rate, you'll be spending £570,000 to win your £100 million turnover. But because it's a 1 in 5 win rate, you're spending nearly 3%, 2.87 percent of your turnover on bidding alone. Now that's a remarkably large sum of money. And if the whole idea of being efficient and how technology helps this is it identifies the bids that you can win and those that you can't win. And so you could put all that time that you've been spending on bids which are it's unlikely you're going to win, and put it on, say, the 3 that have the highest chance, you're going to win a 1 in 3, if not even 2 in 3. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and in such a sort of a low margin industry as especially sort of the contracting side of things that the industry's at the moment, if you can unlock an extra 1 or 2% of your turnover and invest it in, innovation, R&D and other things, other value adding avenues, that then ultimately you'll just further improve your productivity, further improve your margins, and create a stronger industry. I mean, when we generally talk about digitalising, and all these other sort of sometimes buzzwords, because rarely do people really sort of understand it. I mean, from my perspective, it often the barriers are often more about the people than the technology. I mean, do you see that in the uptake of your software and in the research you've done for?
I tend to now position this as not a technological issue. It actually is a cultural issue, and it's about behaviours in organisations. This genie is out of the bottle. People want to use better productivity tools, and they are using them. And it's better. Shall I stop?
Hello, this might as well be in the podcast. Perhaps when you are working in lockdown with young children.
Yeah, okay. I'll start again. So I actually see this not as a technological issue. I see it as a cultural change issue. I think the genie is out of the bottle in terms of that people are using a lot of social media tools and technologies themselves. And I think the other thing that's come out from this COVID-19 is that people are realizing they can be productive at working at home. And I think the driving point's going to be coming in the future is that people are going to say, well, why do I really need to go into work today when I don't need to? And I mean, I wrote a blog on work is what I do, not where I am. And I think that's a challenge the leadership need to be sort of addressing, is in seeing that by creating a virtual digital environments for people to do all of their work, not just as a place where people go, the productivity will be profound. I mean, I look at a lot at other industries, and I'm led by everything that I'm doing in the construction industry is being completely informed by what I've been learning and seeing in other industries. And
any in particular that I mean, we're often told as an industry to look at the automotive industry for learning, and that's especially around sort of the pre-manufactured process and trying to take things off site. He's off again. Tim seems to be having some serious Wi-Fi issues today, doesn't he? Should we just carry on and see how it goes? And aviation is another one. So those are the two that we're often told to look at and try and be more like. But that's very much from the technology side of things. And is when you talk about other industries, do you see culturally other industries that are good fits for the industry and where we can learn from them and bring some of that good stuff in?
Well, I'm looking at practically every single industry out there, from banking to Uber to even firms like IKEA. I think everything's being, my thinking is being very much informed by research that's been undertaken. And what I've always been, and I've sort of, when I did an MBA in 1990, which sort of dates me, I suddenly realised that all the tools and techniques other industries are using are applicable in our industry. And the same, I feel I'm at the same inflection point again as I learn more from what's happening in other industries. So, it is about trying to create a community. It's trying to create the ability for our people to talk and collaborate more and have access to information that they can instantly use to be better informed and to make better decisions. And people were very worried about this impact of technology, and they shouldn't be, because the information is really applied analyzed data which assists us in the jobs and roles that we do. The better solutions are giving us augmented insights. So not only are we then having to just to look and be assisted by the technology and what sort of recommendations, but the augmented is actually positioning and removing tasks that we don't need to do because that's automatically happening. I can illustrate that through things like governance. We've created a sort of an automated governance approach within so workflow sequencing and workflow and gateway close is automatically organized across using RACI. And these sorts of tools, augmented tools, are going to be incredibly efficient for organizations to adopt in the future. Everybody will be doing it. It's just at what point will an industry or will a leadership team go, we need to just get on with this?
Yeah, and you mentioned, is he off again?
I'm here now. I'm here. Sorry about that.
You mentioned sort of the reluctance that I mean, not just our industry, but society on the whole have had maybe with working from home before now, and how I think the realization that there's actually the technology there to help support it has changed things. And it'll be interesting once we come out of this, whether people continue to see that potential productivity gains. We're not losing time traveling around, we're not losing time doing things that you don't necessarily need to be doing. You can be very focused when we work from home in a flexible manner as well. There's no need for the traditional 9 to 5 in many ways either, is there? You can be more flexible in your approach that can drive healthier working environments and healthier, happier people that drive productivity. And again, it's technology enabling this, not technology causing it, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, no, exactly. I think the leadership teams, when they're thinking about creating new digital environments for their people to do the virtual work that they're doing, also need to be recognizing that people are much more fluid and flexible, and if work is really the sum total of activities that we do, then actually having it so that you can work anywhere off your smartphone, and that's what we designed is, you can do all of your work, that's the point, off your smartphone. You can be in a queue at Sainsbury's, you could be waiting for your kid to be seen by the doctor. It doesn't matter. As a task becomes available for you to do, you should be able to do it. So that my mantra is, work is what I do, not where I am. I think that should be the adoption. So it's seamlessly, as people will be demanding this, At the moment, I suppose it's in two areas, at home or at work, but actually the environment you should be creating is anywhere, anytime, 24/7. It doesn't matter where you are. And that information should be just provided and go straight to you so you can do your activities and be informed. And I think firms that do adopt that mindset and do create those environments will have a happier workplace, as you've said, because people can be doing things as they go about their work, and leaders really need to be thinking about the outcomes of what people do, not where they are.
Well, and that is, we talk often, especially in sort of constructing excellence and the likes, about this sort of outcome-led procurement, outcome-focused. How do you create value from what you do, not in what you do? It's all about that sort of that last bubble, isn't it? That's where the value is. It's not in the design and the construction. It's what is the building doing, providing and encouraging, and the sort of the externalities that often creates that you don't realise that you're building into something. By creating more flexible, smarter buildings, the ability to communicate, all these things. But it is, like you say, a real mindset shift in leadership that's required. And it was it 2008? Andrew said, "Never waste a good crisis."
All the times I've heard that being said.
Yeah, but
this is another crisis which I think will be a massive inflection point, and I think we will embrace great change. I'm seeing great sort of potential. Well, the problem we've got in our industry is there is, when you talk about productivity, there are no real measures or metrics for people to assess how productive their current processes are. And I think this is an opportunity for organisations like Construction Excellence to create that benchmarking capability, because firms are pushing back, and people push back and say, well, actually, all the things you do in the cloud, Philip, all those things, I do anyway. So, but because they can't see the poor productivity and they have no reference point to that, why should they change? I get why they would push that back. What we've done to respond to that.
As a QS, I feel it's okay for me to criticise QSs, but a lot of the benchmarks that we do use in the industry are, cost per metre squared and things like that. A school should not cost more than X metre squared. I mean, that's rubbish. You're not taking it into the context of where, why, when, why, and how. And is that really any value? It might be cheapest cost, but it might be rubbish, so it's useless. We benchmark the wrong things.
But also,
smiling now.
Well, no, yeah, you've got me onto one of my favourites. because you're talking about cost per square, whatever it is. But in reality, people know the price of things or the range of prices of things, but the actual cost of things isn't well understood. I'm talking about general construction. So that's one point I'd make there. And just to come back, I know my Wi-Fi failed for one reason or another. So maybe I missed this in the conversation, but there was this whole piece around the current crisis and that it's forcing changes in the way people work. We've noticed it, obviously, not noticed it, we're experiencing it in our own business, but we are still delivering for our clients, I would say probably more efficiently than before and more flexibly. So like we said right at the start, I did a bit of work and then I did my little workout in the front room with my family, and then I've been doing this and then I've had my lunch. There's been no time wasted yet travelling to work. There's been no times hanging around for people to turn up for a meeting, because you might have to wait a minute or two for everyone to join a podcast or a virtual meeting. But the downtime is it's massively less. It's massively less, and the distractions are less. Now, there's some disadvantages as well, and we're seeing this with some of our clients. So certainly some of the other consulting type businesses, architects and engineers, appear to be still operating effectively without premises. They've managed to change their processes and procedures such that particularly if you take architects, where they usually have the week's critique, don't they, on a Friday morning, where the senior partner tears to pieces the work that people have done during the week. That's just their process of doing it. It probably explains why they are the way they are. You can do that this way, can't you? You can still do that remotely. Whether it is as good, you'd have to ask the architects. But
we caveat this with, remember everyone, Tim's an engineer, so it's a very clouded view of anyone who isn't an engineer.
Well, no, but I'm just saying that they have a unique process for getting to a good design. They don't all have the same one, but they have the weekly critique, and it's those are still happening, but they're happening without people being in the same room.
So for me, I think what the digital environment will create is it is, as I said, it's not about technology, it's about the culture, and that the point I think you're illustrating there is about trust. And really, it's when people are working at home or when people are working anywhere, and just remember that differentiator is that, yes, we can give people an interface to work at home, and yes, we can give the same interface at work. But the issue really is can they do it anywhere, anytime via their mobile phone? That's the critical differentiator. But the trust element to me is, what is the role of leadership in these activities? And leadership should be just nurturing and helping and mentoring and creating that environment for people to do their best work. Now, one of the things we're going to have to evolve to be better at is using this technology to help people and to nurture people. And I think that's going to be the transitional pushbacks, that it's not a natural thing, because people like to be in the same room to nurture others. And I think that we'll grow into those things, but I think that's going to be one of the hesitation areas.
So I think we've probably been speaking around half an hour, give or take, now, haven't we? So it's probably worth a bit of a sort of a closing remark or closing statement. So I mean, I might have stolen your thunder, and that might just have been it then, Philip. But if you had one key takeaway, one key thing that you would like everyone to think about, or finish with maybe a bit of positivity. Are you seeing the change happening already, or is it all doom and gloom?
There is zero doom and gloom. For me personally, this is the most exciting thing I've ever personally been involved with. The opportunities are just simply immense. This technology gives us in the construction industry the single biggest opportunity leap forward in our generation. I'm talking a 30 to 40 year leap. And my message would be is, please, can people just invest some time into thinking about this, or doing some research? There's just stacks of stuff online about digital workplaces, digital environments. We're still doing the same job. Everybody needs to do it, but what it does, it just lets people do it more efficiently and more productive. It does not replace you. We're not working for robots yet, but not that in 30 years' time that might be the case. But at the moment, that's the journey.
I don't think we ever will. I mean, you look at some of the industries that have changed the most in terms of, you look at the automotive industry and how people have moved from the shop floor, been replaced by robots. But there's more people working in the automotive industry now, more than ever. There's just hundreds of roles that didn't exist 50 years ago.
I think work will change for us all. Work will be much more enjoyable. The mundane will be taken out. There will be no waiting around. There's no back-to-back meetings anymore. The things that we all enjoy is achieving great things during our working day. And I think what technology can do for us is augment that. So all of the horrible, boring stuff is taken away, crunching spreadsheets, just having the figures, the analytics to be able to be informed. That's all there, and that's what's coming, and it's incredibly exciting.
I mean, we have a few employees who love a spreadsheet, so they'll be gutted to hear you say that, Philip. But I agree.
Spreadsheets
generally.
I've got
I agree.
if you want to end on a thing, spreadsheets are dead, and that is a shocker. but maybe for another time.
Philip?
Fisherman's eye.
A lot of opportunity for more creativity and to see what other avenues you can take within your business that are more digitalized. So a lot of companies are experiencing that where they hadn't had that opportunity to think that before. So
yeah, exactly. You automate the like you're right. You know, sometimes the mundane, but the repetitive tasks, and allow you to focus on the areas that can add value, that can really sort of transform projects and transform outcomes. And that's the exciting thing about where the industry and society can hopefully get to. So thank you, Philip, for joining us today. And I know we've spoken about the opportunity for some other potential guest visits from yourself, because there's so many different things to talk about. So thank you for this initial introduction to you, MyConsole, and some of your thoughts on productivity, and hopefully see you on the other side.
Great, thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
I'd like to echo that. Thanks again, Philip. I mean, the self-styled digital workplace pioneer. That's how you started. I've learned something new there. I think, from my perspective, I always learn something new from Philip. I knew about the research he had done a few years ago, but of course, it's always a timely reminder when you realise that about half of tier one contracting's overhead is work winning. And like you say, 80% of that money is wasted.
Well, the actual stat is 73% of every contractor's spend is wasted. You know, if they want that back, I think you can easily have 1% back of your work winning spend very quickly.
And that means a lot in this industry. So that food for thought for everybody. I'm sure we haven't. This is not the last time we'll hear from Philip, I'm sure. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this podcast. Stay safe in these unusual times. Keep working remotely. See what it looks and feels like to do everything via video, because I think that's the way we've gone that way. And why would we go back to the old way completely? I know I enjoy having a breakfast with people every now and then, but there's some real lessons to learn, and it's probably going to be the catalyst to move the things forward, as Philip's indicated. So thanks again for listening or watching, and see you on the next podcast. Bye.
Thank you.
Come to Invennt for the highest R&D tax credit you can claim. We help construction businesses get back millions in tax credits every year. Contact us today for a free review. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.invennt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.